Welcome to Ink and Flame. I'm your host, Tina Kutras, and tonight I'm sitting down with Selena Reid to talk about her new book, or her series, I should say, Blood in the Dust. Hi, Selena. How are you?
Hi, how you doing? So good to be here.
Great, thank you. And you're coming to us from Australia, are you?
Yes, from Queensland, actually, where it's winter.
Nice. Well, I don't know. It depends on how your view of winter is, but I'm sure that there are some people who wouldn't mind a little bit of a chill right now. Let's start by talking about how you got started writing about dark fantasy.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting story because I'm Gen X, which means I grew up on neglected hose water, and I spent a lot of time by myself. I was always the kid that never fit in. The whole concept of being an outsider really resonated with me, and you see that most often in fantasy and dark fantasy. So that's where it all started, with this concept of being an outsider. And that's what my books are actually about, is about being on the outskirts and not fitting in anywhere, but they sort of explore the concept of coming into your own power, learning to trust yourself, learning to overcome everything that's happened to you and believe in yourself again. So that's a really strong theme that goes throughout my books.
Nice. And how many series do you have?
I've actually written 2 series so far, but this is the first book I've published from them. So The rest of them are coming.
Love it. That's awesome. I love hearing when authors have finished stuff and that they're about to, kind of mass unload, because it gets rid of the dreaded cliffhanger.
Yeah, yes. It's like, what's going to happen next? Are they going to do another one? When is it coming? No, I've already got them all. They're all done. So
that's awesome.
I'm just sort of drip feeding them into the world now.
Okay.
But yeah, the next one's coming out in November.
Nice. Were there any particular experiences in your life that inspired these recurring themes in your series?
Yeah, I'm neurodivergent, and I don't know if you know a whole lot about that world, but when you grow up in the 80s as a neurodivergent child, they don't make any allowances for you at all. Like you literally are growing up with a disability and zero help. So I was always the kid who was labeled as shy, not trying hard enough, needs to pay more attention, needs to, engage more in classes. And from this problem that I had, sort of trying to relate to anybody, to make any kind of connection with these kids, they were just I felt like a square peg trying to be jammed into a round hole. And it made me really think about the concept of what makes humans, but it also made me really empathetic. And so I kind of started identifying with monsters because I felt like one. And what I noticed about monsters is when you read about them, when you see them in television shows and movies, the hero always comes in swinging. Like, they see monster and go, ooh, big scary monster, it must be evil, let's kill it. And that's like the trope, right? But what I saw when I saw them wasn't something that was automatically evil. I saw something defending its home, or something that was trying to adjust to something that had happened to it and not really understanding and lashing out because it was afraid. And so I had this whole other idea of what a monster was. And as I grew, I started researching the folklore behind monsters, and I discovered that they aren't there just to scare us. They're there to protect us. They've always been there to protect us. Because when you think about it, you get told about the monster, like the monster that lives in the lake, to keep you away from the dangerous water. You get told about vampires lurking in the dark so that you don't wander alone. You're told about the boogeyman so that you go to bed and get the proper rest you need. So they've always been protecting us, keeping us from danger the whole time. And so to me, they're just misunderstood. And so in my books, the monsters aren't the bad guys. They're not always the good guys either, but they're a lot more complicated than your average, I'm a monster, ergo I must kill everything. They're not like that.
Right.
So, there's a lot more depth to them than that.
That's a very different theme. I like that. So, what drew you to exploring, I guess, to some degree, how you grew up drew you to it, but was there a specific event that drew you towards the monsters?
It was actually, there was 2. that I could think of. One of them was when I was about 7 years old, I heard the story of the Beast of Coglan Grange. And I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it's a really, really old vampire legend. It predates Dracula, and it came from an era when vampires weren't like the sexy, suave heartbreakers that they are considered today. They were grotesque. They were monsters. And it scared the heck out of me. I was 7. But it stuck with me and I never ever forgot about it. And I thought, why was it? I just kept thinking, why was it doing this? Why was it doing that? Like, why did this monster come to this house and attack these people? And I needed to understand that. So that kicked off this whole need to understand monsters. But then later in life, I saw The Creature from the Black Lagoon, which, everybody knows Creature, right? And in the film, everybody seemed to reacted to the creature as though he was this terrifying beast. But what I saw was a creature that was defending its home. And it actually had a lot of empathy for the woman. Like, the woman wasn't doing anything bad. So it wasn't violent to her. He just wanted to hang out with her. And, whereas the men were trying to kill it. So of course it was violent to them. And I thought, well, that's every animal. Any animal, if you invade their home, they're going to attack to defend themselves because that's nature. That's just how that works. And that's where I really started getting fascinated with the psychology behind monsters. And of course, Mary Shelley. Who can forget the whole psychology behind Mary Shelley and, her amazing Creature. She entered sci-fi and horror. Come on. So that was a really exciting idea to me as well.
So, being from Australia, you might have some different monsters than we have here in North America, do you?
Oh, yes, we do. We do. But I have tried to be very respectful to the Indigenous people of our country. They have the coolest monster stories ever, but I haven't stolen from them because those stories belong to them. So what I've tried to do is be inspired by them instead. So there aren't a whole lot of Australian monsters in my story just because of that, but there are references to them. Like, we have our own werewolf down here called the Orinja, which is like the coolest werewolf ever. And my hero, the female main character, FMC, she is called Bunyip Jones. And Bunyip, of course, is a famous Australian monster. So that was something that I was really quite pleased with, that I was able to call that. It worked really well.
Very cool. So you crafted the world called the Slip World Chronicles. Can you tell us a little bit about the first spark of inspiration for the larger universe?
Yes. The Slip World was an idea I came up with when 2 ideas that I had clashed. One was that I kept seeing, I kept wondering if creatures like Bigfoot are real. They always say, if Bigfoot's real, why don't you find any evidence of it? Why is it the photos are always blurry? Blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking about that, and I thought to myself, what if the reason they're blurry is because they're not really here in the same sense we are? And what if you never find any evidence of them because they kind of just blip in and out of our existence? They're not physically here all the time. And I thought, what if that's the reason things disappear? You see lots of stories where people will see something and that they can't identify and that it just vanishes in front of them. And I started thinking, what if there's a whole world out there that's full of magic and monsters and creatures like the Fae, but it's like just hidden behind our world. It's just out of sight and you can only see it from the corner of your eye unless they want you to. And that's why you can never really see it. And I thought, well, that's why nobody ever finds a Loch Ness Monster then, because it's always just disappearing to this other world whenever they're out there with boats. And the idea just entertained the hell out of me. So I apologise. My peanut in chief is requiring floor time.
That's okay.
That's where the Slip World came from.
That's a fantastic thought process. I love that. Blood in the Dust is the first in the Yip Jones series. How did the idea for the debut novel take shape?
I really wanted to have a book that was set in Australia that wasn't the same old, same old. I wanted something that was going to be different, and I couldn't find one. Like, all of the books that I found that were set in Australia were always the same. So I wrote one, and I was inspired by everything that I was reading at the time. I was reading a lot of criminology books, a lot of supernatural sort of lore and things like that. So this is kind of a little bit murder mystery, a little bit monster story. You have to look hard, but there is romance in there as well. It's the slowest burn romance you'll ever have. It actually takes about 6 books for it to become something, but it's there. So, I mean, poor Yip, she is deeply traumatized from the moment she walks onto the page. She has a hellish past. I gave her the worst past I could think of because I needed her to be in a position where she had certain skills. So I gave Yip a really traumatized backstory because I needed her to be in a position where she would see things that most people didn't see. And that was really important for how she got into this story. But I also needed her to have a certain level of courage. And that all came from her backstory. And it's why she's called Bunyip Jones, actually, because she wasn't obviously born with that name. You don't get born Bunyip Jones. She chose that name for herself. And that's part of this whole idea of claiming your own identity and becoming who you are. So, yeah, she chose her own name. And she bears it proudly.
So is a lot of that backstory for Bunyip in the first book?
Yes, yes. You get to find out why she is like she is, how she lost a hand, because she only has one hand. She's got a prosthetic on her left hand. You find out a lot of that backstory in the first book because it informs who she is as a character. And my stories are very character driven. Like, character pushes everything, like the whole narrative. But as the series rolls out, it becomes more and more critical to the storyline. And in the end, she actually gets to confront her past. Fight back.
All right.
So, yeah.
So Yip Jones is a very unique name for a protagonist. What can you tell us about her, and how does her story reflect the broader themes of identity and humanity?
She's the survivor of a cult, an abusive cult. She was abducted as a child, raised in this cult, and she got to a point where she even as a child knew this was wrong. So she escaped, and that's how she lost her hand. She actually had to fight her way out. She ended up climbing out of a billabong, and they thought she was a monster. She climbed out covered in mud and sticks of hair and what have you. That's how she became Bunyip, because they thought she was they said she looked like a bunyip. And she claimed that as her own. That was her power. But I really wanted to give it as a nod to Australian folklore, like our mythology, because I couldn't use a whole lot of it. But her name basically is very essential to her character. It sums up who she is, because she's a monster who fights back. She's the one who didn't give up. She's like, yeah, okay, I'm an outsider. I'm a monster. You may not like me, but here I am. What are you going to do about it? So, she kind of takes that back, and she's not your standard, FMC. She's not the one she's not a badass. She's not going to, she's not a damsel in distress. Just the one who just doesn't stop trying. She gets knocked down over and over and over again, just keeps getting back up because she has to, because nobody else is going to do it for her. And that is what drives her through all of these books. It's just this, I've got to do this. I have to do this. So she's got this real inner strength to her, which I admire. I wish I could be more like her in that way. But yeah, I just hope people really care about her. Like, they care about her the way I do. She's kind of become my best friend. And she's got this whole crew around her, of these really interesting characters who I love. And they are the first people in her life that accept her for who she is. And so that's this real pivotal thing for her as well. So this sense of suddenly being belonging.
So it's got the found family vibes, does it?
Very much, yeah. Very much found family. Yeah, that's a
Beautiful.
strong one. Because sometimes it's the people. Yeah, sometimes it's the people you choose that make the best family.
Yes, exactly. So the mythology and lore in Blood in the Dust are so rich. How much of it is inspired by existing folklore and how much of it is original?
It's about 50-50, actually. One of the concepts that I really liked about, one of the ideas I had with the slip world was, you hear the trope in just about every book that involves mythology, where somebody will inevitably say all the stories are true. That's what they always say that. But what they mean is werewolves are real, vampires are real, fairies are real. But in my books, all the stories are true. So there's not just one kind of werewolf. There's like, I think they list 17 of them. When all told, there are 3 of them that Yip encounters in this book. 3 completely different kinds of werewolf. One from Ireland, one from an Armenian werewolf, and a Norse werewolf. So there is never just one kind of anything. There is a whole bunch of different things depending on where you are. Like, and I sort of treat them like ecosystems, if you like. If you're from Africa, then you come across the Asasabalsam, which is an arboreal vampire. Or if you're from the Philippines, it would be like, they've got a half a dozen different kinds of vampires. So, you know, I've kind of used these cultural references to inform what these creatures are and where they're coming from and who they are. But I've also introduced a few that are just my own because it's fun. So I have my very own kind of werewolf in here. I have my very own kind of vampire. So, yeah.
That must have taken some pretty deep research.
Yeah, but I mentioned I'm neurodivergent, right? We tend to hyperfocus.
Wow.
Yeah, got lost in that source for a while.
Yeah. I imagine that took a minute. So I know quite a bit about when you mentioned the Philippines, just the Asian vampires in general, because I have children who are in love with Asian movies in general. And some of them are either zombie-esque or vampires. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
That's a really neat concept that it's not, I don't think I've ever seen that where everything's at play. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool.
I'd never seen it either. And I was always like, I never understood, why is there only ever one of these things? There's so many different kinds out there. So yeah, I did what people tell you to do. If you don't see it, write it. So I did.
That's right. Very cool. So were there any big surprises or unexpected developments that arose while writing this book?
Yeah, a couple of times the characters just kind of took over. And I had this very careful plot. This happens to authors all the time. I had a very careful plot that was all thought out. Then my characters got involved with it. They just threw that out the window, did their own thing, like a bunch of naughty children, and the little beggars made it better. So I went off in this completely different direction.
The same problem.
Right. And I'm like, actually, that's really cool. There were so many times where I'm like, what the heck are you doing? Like, I'd be talking to one of my characters and it was usually Catch. He's the naughtiest boy. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he'd be like, oh, I'm just going to do this. But, Reese. Reese is another character who was constantly doing that. Reese is my non-binary white. Reese is a ghoul. And they're also the pathologist for this team that are going out investigating murders because, who knows more about the dead than somebody who is only alive because of them. A ghoul knows more about the dead than anybody, right? So I've also got a vampire who's the blood splatter analyst. But being a ghoul, being a white, Reese is just Teflon. Nothing phases them. People break into their trailer while they're doing things and they're like, oh, can I show you something cool? Or, they come across dead bodies and they're like, this is amazing. Have you seen this? And they just get right into it and have no problem with any of it. Meanwhile, Paul Bunyip's over there going green, but Reese is like, yeah. And it's just the fun. That character was so much fun to write.
It sounds like it would be. And it sounds like, by the way you speak of them, that you're very attached to them. It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're my imaginary friends.
Yeah. So dark urban fantasy is such a compelling genre. What do you think it offers to readers that other genres don't quite grasp?
I think the world we live in can be a very dark place. And so if you've ever had trauma in your life, then dark urban fantasy is really cathartic because it's a place where you can escape to and things happen that kind of give you closure. They give you power back. And that's what I've done with that's what I've done with my stories is I've tried to make it cathartic for those who struggle like me, like I did.
So fantasy often mirrors real world struggles. How do you use your monsters and mystery in your stories to explore deeper things like humanity and acceptance?
That's a really, really good question. It's a very cool question. I do it in a number of different ways. It's very layered, if I do say so myself. There's a lot of exploration of identity in my stories. where characters have to come to grips with what they are. I have villains, but my villains have the same motivations that you would see in a thriller. Like they're not doing any, like they're monsters, but they're only doing it because they're not doing it just because they're monsters. They all have to come to terms with what they are and their place in the world. But it also sort of serves as an allegory for anybody who has been othered, anybody who feels like they weren't comfortable in their skin and they had to become somebody else in order to do that. Because a lot of us have been there, like, a lot of us have been they've tried to force us into a particular pigeonhole and we never fit there. So the idea of society kind of trying to shove you one way and you go, well, no, that's not me, I'm over here. That's what a lot of these characters explore. Like they all have a different way of not fitting in. And then somehow when they come together, they become this glorious mismatch of personalities that work somehow. And suddenly they all just fit when they never did before. And that, I think, is quite, it's quite a powerful, I hope, the idea of it. Anyway. That's what I aim for.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a debut author, writing in a genre as niche as dark urban fantasy, what challenges have you faced while getting your book into the world?
Finding my audience has been the hardest thing because as an introvert, as somebody who's not amazing with people, I actually don't have a lot of self-confidence. So it's really hard for me to go out there and boast about, I wrote a book and it's great and you should read it. I mean, I think it is great and you should read it. But I feel like a bit of a dummy saying so the marketing has been like really hard for me. Like just being able to reach people has been really hard because it's not something that I naturally do. And it's a very different mindset to writing a book. So, everybody says writing a book is hard. No, not compared to marketing. Marketing is really hard.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm thrilled to be here, like to talk to you and to everybody that watches your podcast because I don't know how cool.
Thanks. I think I do totally agree with you that we want to share this message and we start writing, and the writing process by itself is daunting, but it's nothing compared to the stepping out of your comfort zone and trying to stop the scroll and get attention when people are looking at at books online. It's definitely a very vast market, and it's really, really challenging to stand out.
Yeah, especially, when you are a little indie author and you don't have the resources that, the big publishers have. So you take all the help you can get.
That's right. So is there a particular subgenre of fantasy or horror that you're excited to explore in future books?
I feel like I've very much found my niche with my dark urban fantasies. But I did start with regular fantasy. And when I was a teenager, I used to write a lot of stories like about dragons and paladins and things like that. Oh, God, I love it so much. And I still do love that kind of story. And being a teenager, of course, they were all very whimsical and full of romance. And part of me still loves that. And part of me still kind of wants to get back there. So I don't know, maybe I'll go down that road one day, but I'll dip my hat back into that little pond, because it's such a cool pond. It is such a rich pond. But for now, I think my urban fantasy that's my home.
And you're on the first book, but you have a massive series, correct?
I have. Yes, I actually have. There are 7 books in this series and I've already written them all. The next one's coming out in November. And then there's a second series after that, which is 6 books. And I've written that as well. And I'm currently working on what the third series is going to be. So, the Slipbook Chronicles is the umbrella that covers all of those series. And this first series, they're the Yip Jones adventures. So they just cover her adventures. So
nice. Okay. So
you get
your book is
way deep into the mythology.
Yeah. So your book has already garnered some passionate responses from some readers. Have there been any reactions or reviews that truly touched or surprised you?
I had one reader the other day who told me that she got really emotional about what Yip was going through. And it actually made her get a bit teary. And I was really moved by that because you can't tell me that's not magic, right? I always thought like words have this magical power, and the idea that something I wrote could make somebody else feel emotional was just so cool.
I think that's kind of what all writers aspire to try and, touch someone in a way that resonates with them so well.
Right? Yes, exactly. I think that's why we all write. So that somebody out there can identify with that little, with what we've written. And if we can make their lives even a little bit better by giving them that, then it's all worth it.
Right. So your story has a lot of concepts in it. Like I really love this multi-layered
it's complicated.
look. What do you hope readers take away from reading Blood in the Dust?
I really hope that when they come out the other end of this, they get an idea that they don't have to get acceptance from the whole world. They just need to be accepted by the people who matter, the ones who care about them. They're the only people that matter. So, and they need to, they can feel comfortable just being themselves, even if they're not perfect, even if they're not a cookie cutter hero, even if they're not what they want to be. Like they're out there, they're doing their best, and that is enough. And I hope that's what they take away from it, that they can just be themselves and be okay with that.
That's a beautiful sentiment. It really is. That's gorgeous.
Kind of what the whole point of the books are, is just to be comfortable with yourselves. And even if you're not society's first choice, it doesn't matter, because somebody cares about you. And that's important. You matter. Doesn't matter who you are or what your life is like. You matter. Everybody matters.
So is there a moment when a reader or fan pointed out something in the book that even you hadn't realized or noticed while writing?
Not yet, but there've only been one out there so far, given time. So the book's only been out for about a month and a bit. So I'm waiting for that. That's going to happen, I'm sure of it, but it hasn't yet.
Or connect something. I'll give an example of a connection. Actually, that would be a spoiler. So there is a moment in one of Rachel Gillig's books that my sister reached out to me and said something, and she had got something like way earlier than she usually does. So I think that's kind of what I was going for with that question, was somebody having an aha moment of your concept and coming and talking to you about it.
Right. Well, my mother likes to say that she always picks the villains because she knows me so well. But she's my mother, so you can't believe anything she says.
So what would you say to readers who see themselves as outsiders or struggle with acceptance, like some of the characters that you portray?
Say that it doesn't matter what people say about you, because you are important. You matter. Doesn't matter what people say about you. You do matter, and you are valid just for being yourselves, because it's society that puts this idea in our heads that we have to prove ourselves. Nature doesn't. If you're born a lion, you're okay just because you're born. And that's the same idea that my books have. You're okay. You are valid because you're human, because you are alive. And that's all you need to do. That's all you need to be valid. So hang in there, because, there's a lot of us out there.
So if Yip Jones were dropped into our world, what do you think her favorite coffee shop or order spot would be? Do you have one?
I do, but it's not one it's like this little unique coffee shop, and it's now closed, which is unfortunate. There was a place that I used to go to all the time, the Tiny Tree Cafe, and they closed it down. But she would probably go to one of the smaller coffee shops as well. I don't think she'd probably stay away from places like Starbucks and like the big chains. She would definitely go to the small ones, the mum and pop shops, as they call them.
Yeah. So if you could recruit a famous monster or supernatural creature from folklore into the Slip World Chronicles, who would you pick and why?
I already have. No, I've recruited most of them. Hang on, who haven't I recruited yet?
That's fair.
Who have I still got? Who's still out there? I'm still trying to figure out a way to work in. No, I did get one of those in. Okay. I want to do more work with black dogs. I've had a black dog character, but he was a bit character. I want to do more with him because that is a fascinating. The number of black dogs is very cool. Also, boogeymen. Boogeymen and demons are the only legends that are global. Every culture in the world has some concept of a boogeyman and a demon. And that's fascinating to me.
Okay.
So that's
That
something
is
that I'd really
fascinating.
like to visit at some point.
Here's an interesting sidebar.
What's
I
up?
was just at the Montreal Comic-Con, and while I was there, I was across the aisle from a company that sells lightsabers. And while we were all chatting back and forth at the beginning of the day before the place was crowded, one of the guys had mentioned that in the comics, sort of like a what if comic, you know how at the beginning of Star Wars it says in a galaxy a long time ago and a long far, far away, the outcome of Chewbacca and Han Solo is that they get stranded on Earth and they are very long lived. And Chewbacca is actually the origins of the Bigfoot legend, according to Star Wars lovers. That's your useless piece of information for today.
That's a cool idea. I actually
Just a
wondered
little
if it was,
off the wall.
No, that is a very cool idea. That actually werewolf legends have similar origin stories as well. Well, not Chewbacca, but hypertrichosis actually seems to come into it a lot. But no, that's a really interesting idea. I do know that when they were filming, I think it was Empire, Peter, what's his surname? The guy who played Chewbacca.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they had to put him in high-vis gear when he wasn't in the scene so that people didn't mistake him for Bigfoot and accidentally shoot him, which is awesome. Yeah. Tell me something, though. When you watched Star Wars for the first time and the Rancor monster died, did you cry? Because I did.
I definitely did not cry.
I was
But
about 11 years old and I bawled my eyes out because that noise it made, that oof, that it makes when it dies. And then its handler comes over and he's so sad and I'm like bawling my eyes out going, he was just doing what he was told to do. So
I remember that. Yeah.
I was heartbroken. I was absolutely heartbroken.
So you wrote a 2-sentence horror story where she woke up, he didn't. If that were expanded into a full plot, what twists would you have?
I would probably have that she was undead.
Okay. You had already thought about that one.
No, that just occurred to me now.
Wow, that's good. I like it. You explore identity in your books, but if you could disguise yourself as a mythical creature for one day, which one would you pick?
Werewolf. My favorite.
A werewolf.
The tragic monster. I love werewolves.
Any specific one?
There's so
Since
many.
we now know there's so many to choose from. Yeah.
There are so many to choose from. I'm very fond of the Irish werewolf, the Fuiala, which I'm probably mispronouncing. Apologies to Irish people. Because what I love about that particular version of the werewolf is that they're protectors. Like, their whole thing is that they protect, they don't attack unless you're the problem, which I find is a really sweet turn on the whole, monster idea. And then there's the Deweo, I think, is another one, or the Wolfer, or the Orinja, which is very cool.
So you'd need a whole week to be who you want to be.
How can you choose just one? I would, yeah, no, I'd probably need a month, actually. There's loads of them. So.
Sounds like a fun way to spend the month.
Yeah, right.
So can you share a little bit of what's next for Yip Jones without any spoilers?
Yeah, I can. In the next book, they go to Tasmania and they encounter an underground ring that is fighting monsters against monsters. And Yip and the team have to figure out where they are, who they are, and stop them before before it gets worse. So there are a lot of new creatures in that one. Lots of new characters that are really kind of fun. And I really, really do terrible things to Yip and Catch in that one. The poor buggers, they really go through it. But it all works out. It's fine.
I always love the deviousness of an author talking about what they put their characters through.
So I've always thought that you can always tell an author's favorite character by the one who suffers the most. So my characters suffer. They really go through it. So
lastly, where can people find Blood in the Dust? And can you tell everyone again when the sequel is being released?
Yeah. So the book is available in paperback on my Books By account, which is Books by Selena Reid author with dashes in between those words. Or you can get it on Amazon, or you can get it on, about 13 other places. There's a whole bunch of different shops. I have a link tree on my Facebook and Instagram if you want to find out exactly where, so that there is bound to be somewhere near you where you can get it. Although I have heard that on Amazon it can be hard to find. But it's on Goodreads, so that's another spot you can find it. And the sequel will be out in November. Blood on the Ferns is the next one. So, because, you've got to have blood. It's dark urban fantasy. Blood is necessary. So they're all blood.
Right.
But
Awesome. So, Selena, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was such a fun time chatting.
thank you for having me. I've had the best time. It has been a blast.
I really hope that that the series gets all the attention that it deserves, because what a concept. I really love the Slipworld World Chronicles concept. It's amazing.
Thank you. That means a lot. That means so much. So I've really, I worked hard on it, so I hope people enjoy it.
And I love the fact that you've got it ready to go. People need that.
Yeah, it's all right, people. It's all sorted out. They're coming.
Thank you again.